Well, hello, folks. I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily NeoTA wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective each time, asking ourselves what happened today. What does it tell us about the coming ones? Do the show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. It's broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time, archived on YouTube. It's under the channel L.A. Little. If you haven't subscribed, reach up there in the right-hand corner. Subscribe. Anytime content's pushed, you'll get notification. And that way you can keep up with what's happening in these markets. As far as what did happen today, it was a flat day. You know, we actually had the push up and then gave it all up at the end of the day. We'll look at some of the charts to see that. Big rally over in Europe, 2.77 on the CAC, 2.4 on the DAX. That's 2 days in a row. Large moves to the upside on the DAX. Gold drops like a rock, down 1.3%. Oil down another 3%. Oil pushing that $40 a barrel now with a vengeance. Dollar works its way higher, gives up a little bit, and that was pretty much the story. Asia was pretty flat. If we take a look at these markets, we'll start with the S&P 500. Unfortunately, I don't have volumes on them tonight. I did go elsewhere to look to see what the volumes looked like. Volumes were pretty close to yesterday. In some cases a little bit heavier, in some cases a little bit lighter. In the case of the S&P, volume was heavier today, so you go over, back under, but you got heavier volume. So you fell on price, right, to stay above yesterday's nice big spike up. But you've actually got some volume as you're pushing up into that area. Now, if you remember yesterday or last night, we were talking about this area is going to be some resistance, and this was probably going to try to push into the top of this bar, and it came right back almost into that area that we were looking at. If we look at the NASDAQ pushed right straight up into that area that we thought it would. That was here and here, if you remember from the show last night. It got right to the zone that we thought it would. The seller stepped in, sold it back down. On the NASDAQ, volume-wise, you actually had slightly heavier volume than you did last night. High last night, 49.84, almost 49.85. You closed just barely over it, so you get over it. You got a little bit more volume. That says it's going to try and probably push into that area again come tomorrow. On the NDX, a different story. The NDX actually comes back, gets back underneath yesterday's bar. It also traded right back to that area that we thought it would. We laid that out last night. Of course, the TA Today charts tonight show you the resistance zone that was there. That was the one I pointed out that you would expect to see the sellers come in. 4609.93 was the top price point for it to get to. The low price point was 45.9874. It trades to 45.9827, so it gets right almost to where it needed to go, or should go, shall we say. Turned around, trades back down, gets up underneath there. Has lighter volume, and so that's an over-under with lighter volume. On the Russell also just can't get any kind of relief. Trades, and I don't have volumes on the Russell. If I look at the IWM, the volumes there were a little bit, actually let's pull up the IWM and look at it as a proxy, a little bit heavier, right? So you go over, back under, you have a little bit more volume if we're looking at the IWM. Overall, index is a little bit mixed in terms of a signal tonight, so we don't have great signals to work with. We've got the possibility, though, if we go back, I'm going to pull the S&P back up here. We have the possibility now, though, that we could get some sort of another ABCD structure to the downside, right, which would take us back on the S&P, take us back to that bottom of this bullish retest regenerate zone. So we came into the top of it, right, held the top. Now the ABCD structure here, if it holds, would be projecting down into this green zone that you see on the charts. And that, folks, is going to be kind of where the rubber meets the road. If you remember on Sunday night, I was talking about I expected these markets to try to push up this week, especially the beginning of the week, and then we'd get some sort of a leveling off. Well, it looks like we're starting to get that already. Let's take a look at the OX markets, because in those markets we're starting to get the next push down, the next leg down on the currencies. You got the Japan, Bank of Japan tomorrow night, I believe. ABCD structure here on the FXE to try to take it lower. And if you look at the FXY, you have the same sort of scenario there, where this one's coming back after those lows, and that's going to depend on what the Bank of Japan does. If you flip over to the dollar, as we saw, the dollar actually traded higher again. Dollar breaks over the highs, does a little doji at the highs, but it's over the highs. If you look at the weekly, it's over that swing point high as well. We'll have to see if it holds up here for the week, but at this particular point in time, the dollar now is starting to target that last swing point high out there in this big range that it's been trading in for a good 6-7 months now. So dollar, and there's another one right in the middle there. Dollar is in the middle of the range now. Going to try to shoot for that top if you can get the Bank of Japan to contribute to more weakness in the yen. Gold trades down. This is becoming a very ugly story. Let me pull up gold here. Gold trades down, volume expands, gets under the lows, and on the weekly now is under. If you remember now, gold has been trying to hold this area, right? It's had kind of this range. Pull it in there. You actually have a range right here, so you kind of had like 3 ranges. Gold's trying to get under it, right? And if it does, it's going to project quite a bit lower if in fact it starts to shoot to the downside. Not the end of the week yet. This is a weekly chart, so we're going to have to see where it ends up. But if it breaks here, you're going to break multiple swing point lows, multiple time frames. That's usually not a good story. Now overseas, we had a decent bounce in the Asian markets. Taipei, pretty good bounce, closes kind of an ugly candle, trades up into that swing point low or almost to it. You got a bearish retest, regenerate there. That's going to be the key test on this particular market. If we look at the Nikkei, and Nikkei on that currency weakness pushes up to test the top, has volume. Big story there is going to be what happens with the Bank of Japan. Hong Kong has had a tough time. You got a nice bounce, but again, ugly finish to the chart. And then of course, I don't have volumes here either tonight. I did check on volumes intraday with some of the members, and German DAX was doing less volume, a little bit less volume than we had at the highs. So we're pushing up towards those highs. We got a little bit less volume, but there's not much up there, so we'll have to see how that one plays out. Big momentum move off the lows, off the Paris situation over the weekend. And here in France, the CAC does the same thing. Nice big spike up, 2.77%. It does not have the volume as it comes into the swing point high, though. 49.47 there. You're at 49.37. I expect that unless we get some volume coming into this, this is going to actually try to turn come tomorrow. If so, the DAX will do the same. And let's see here. If we turn to the sectors, just like the indexes, both overseas and domestically, giving us mixed signals. You've got some sectors that pushed higher on volume, some that did not, some that pushed over back under, right, which would be sort of a little pullback scenario. If I look at the financials, for example, the financials go over, back under, less volume. These look like they'll probably try to retrace some tomorrow. The ones that pushed up with some volume, like the basic materials we just saw, and another one I think was healthcare. Healthcare wasn't one. Healthcare just held higher. Those can continue. So mixed signals right across the board. You're at the point now where the easy trade is already in the books, and that easy trade, of course, was the bounce, the expectation of that bounce, right where you would expect it to take place. That has already happened. Now you've got the scenario where one side or the other is going to have to blink. And what I mean by that, ABCD structure down, or is this actually going to be some sort of a larger, we would take it from here actually, is it going to be some sort of a larger, and I'm trying to figure out where I want to take it from. Actually, I don't want to take it on this chart. I want to look at the weekly. Is it going to be some sort of a larger ABCD structure that holds and eventually pushes higher? We don't know the answer to that yet, and we won't know the answer to that until we get a little bit more information. At this particular point in time, the best that we can say is that this market's mixed. We're not that clear with respect to signals for tomorrow. I don't have any good signals. Looks to me like what you're going to get is some chop. It's a little bit news driven now with the fluid situation in Europe as well. And you keep having economic numbers that are not that enticing. Manufacturing numbers today, not so good. Retail sales last week, not good. You had a little bit of an inflation pickup. You're getting numbers that suggest the Fed is going to move, but then you have the fluid situation in Europe with the geopolitical situation. Will that influence the Fed? People don't know. Investors don't know. Big players in the market, they're kind of holding their cards tightly to the vest right here, and we're at a point where we're going to have to decide probably by the end of this week which way is it going to be. If you had to, ask me, roll the dice right now, I couldn't roll because there's nothing here. We'll find out tonight, or excuse me, tomorrow, whether or not we're going to get some pressure to the downside. Key is going to be probably, we're going to switch back over on that Russell. That Russell, and I'm going to pull it back up here. That Russell has been the weakest one. If the Russell starts to break down again, in particular this particular bar, 1145.48, then it's going to be a bad situation, and you're not that far away. So that to me is the key chart that you should keep your eye peeled on tomorrow, and we'll see, because it's been the leader on the downside, and we'll see if it can actually hold up or not. The worst thing that's happening right now, to wrap this up, is you're not getting the rotation. This market cannot go higher on a select group of stocks forever. It has to broaden out. You have to have others participate. If you don't get that, the best you can say is you're range bound. The worst you can say, of course, is that you're going back down. But at this particular point in time, the Russell can't even get into the higher range, and that higher range keeps thwarting it. Till next time, I'm LA. This is and was your daily NeoTA wrap. I'll catch you tomorrow. We'll see what it plays out. It's Wednesday. We've got the Fed minutes tomorrow. That will probably be a big piece of the news tomorrow, and then of course the geopolitical. We could go, another couple days here before we get a good signal, is my opinion at this point. But with the fluid situation, anything can happen, and we'll see what does happen. Watch this bar tomorrow. Have a great one. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Good night.